Oh, we're not even rolling here, are we?
Oh, we should check the audio, huh?
Check. 1, 2.
What's going on, guys? How's everyone doing? There's a quick audio check there from our audio guy. Guys, audio guys are invaluable. You need an audio guy, okay? Get an audio guy. If you don't have an audio guy, get one. Right?
Yeah. You don't have audio? Say adios to your production.
It's no bueno. Yeah. Hey, you habla español? Yeah, you did. What's up, YouTube? We're back. Week 2. We did it again.
Another video.
What are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about high-speed sync. Do you know what that is?
No idea, but you're going to tell us, right? Here.
You have no idea now, so I'm going to educate him first, and then we'll come back and tell you what it is.
We'll be right back. Wait, so what is it?
High-speed sync is a way of firing flash that enables you to shoot at shutter speeds that are above the camera's native sync speed. So, what does that mean? Well, first let's talk about how a camera's shutter works. For the most part, cameras other than the ones that use leaf shutters, the way a picture is taken is by moving two curtains to expose the sensor. These curtains are typically called the first and second or front and rear curtains.
Now, when you hit the shutter button, the first curtain opens, revealing the sensor for the exposure. And at the end of this exposure, the second curtain closes to block the light. When shooting at low shutter speeds, we don't have any issues as the camera mechanism is able to fully open the first curtain before having to drop down the second curtain. Now, a camera's maximum sync speed is the longest time that both curtains can stay open before the second curtain has to start closing. Usually this is between a range of 1/200th to 250th of a second.
Let's take a look at what happens when a flash fires when we are under our sync speed. As you can see, there is a moment here where the sensor is fully exposed and the flash can be triggered to illuminate everything. Now what happens when you go beyond this sync speed? You can see that before the first curtain can fully open, the second curtain is already closing. This means that there isn't a moment when the full sensor is exposed. It looks like a sliver running down the sensor from top to bottom. If a flash is triggered at any moment, there would be a piece of the curtain blocking some part of the sensor, and this is what creates that banding look.
So, how does this high-speed sync solve the issue? Well, what high-speed sync does is it pulses the flash instead of just firing it once for the duration of the exposure. Each sliver of the sensor is getting the same exposure as the curtains draw, and in essence, it's perceived by the sensor as continuous light. This feature allows us to shoot flash at high speeds. And why do we even want to shoot at higher shutter speeds? Well, it really all comes down to just more creative control.
Imagine, for example, we're shooting portraits in broad daylight. We most likely cannot shoot at f1.4 and at 1/200th of a second without having an overexposed shot. What we can do is either close down our aperture, which gets rid of the shallow depth of field that is so flattering for portraits, or not use flash at all, which can make the subject too underexposed. None of which are wrong, but again, this just limits our creative options. With high-speed sync, we can shoot wide open and increase our shutter speed to whatever the maximum shutter speed our cameras can allow.
Yeah, another cool thing about flashes is that in theory, shutter speed does not affect flash exposure. Although there is a fall off in power as you increase your shutter due to the light having to work harder. What this means in a practical use case is we can control subject exposure with flash power and background exposure with shutter speed. This gives us a lot more control on how we want our image to look, and if we want a really dramatic portrait where the subject really stands out from the background, we simply increase our shutter speed.
Yeah, that's what makes it easy. There are drawbacks though, and the main one is power loss and slower recycle times. This means we can take fewer shots in a session, and we also lose the ability to shoot any sort of burst modes.
Those are fun.
Using ND filter is also an option. However, this comes with its own drawbacks, like having to carry ND filters. And it's a bit slower when dialing down the subject to background exposure ratio, because an ND filter affects both flash and ambient. So decreasing background exposure isn't just as simple as increasing your shutter speed.
Yeah, high-speed sync is really a big part of how we create our images. It's a useful feature for portraits, action, sports, which all require fast shutter speeds anyway. So really any scene where you want more freedom and control for your depth of field or subject to background exposure ratio, high-speed sync is the way to go. So definitely hope this video helped you out. I love ND filters, but I think it's just a different tool to kind of add to your toolbox.
Yep, high speed sync. There it is. If you like this video, please like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you on the next one.
We'll see you next week. Peace.
It's the remix to ignition.
Hot and fresh out the kitchen. Mama rolling, the body got every minute.